Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this week's video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the race game again. We're going to try and pick the pace up a little bit because the last two videos have gone on longer than they should. But what we're going to do, we're going to add some checkpoints. The functionality of checkpoints is going to be limited in this video because there are some other things that we need to work on to make them fully functional. But essentially, you'll be able to drive over them. They'll count towards the checkpoint marker, so like 1 out of 6, 2 out of 6, that sort of thing. Once you cross the finish line, they'll reset and reappear. What they won't do at this point is they're not going to sort of prevent you from finishing the race just yet. So if you've only got 5 out of 6 checkpoints and you cross the finish line, it'll still finish the race at this point. That'll come in a future video. It requires a bit more weave. You could easily develop on that yourself, I reckon, but it's just not going to be covered in this video. I've got a funny feeling that this is going to also be about 30 minutes, as is. So let's just jump straight into it. I don't want to waste any more time. So we're going to create a new blueprint class. We're going to make an actor. We need to make the actual checkpoint itself. So that's just going to be an actor. So I'm going to call this BP_checkpoints. I'm going to open that up. Now, all the checkpoint is... Wait, why don't we open that? All the checkpoint is basically is just something to record the fact that the vehicle's driven over it. So what we're going to use is we're just going to use a basic shape. We're going to use a cylinder. I'm going to drop the height down to 0.1. We're going to bed this into the ground anyway, so don't worry too much about that. I'm going to set the size to maybe... Let's try 10 to start with, 10 by 10, which looks big, but once we get it on the racetrack, it probably won't be. I'm going to change the material colour to something that's distinct, maybe this nice orange colour, once the shader compiles. So yeah, that I mean, it looks orange on there, but it's probably more of a red. Once you've coloured it, we just want to change the collision type as well to overlap all. We don't want to crash into our checkpoint. That would be a bit counterproductive. And for now, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to drop it onto the racetrack and just see what it looks like, see if we need to change that size. So we'll drop it down. And yeah, I think that could do with being a little bit wider. Obviously, if you want like a GTA style checkpoint, which kind of like is a bit smaller because it forces you into a path, maybe not for this kind of map. On a racetrack, it'd be pretty pointless, I think. You want more of on a racetrack, you want a gate, but if I'm talking too much into ideas here, but effectively, you might want a smaller one if you want to push someone in a certain direction, so it reduces the scope of where they can drive through. GTA does that quite a lot on like something like the quad bike challenges and stuff like that. Anyway, again, I said I wasn't gonna sort of blow into loads of ideas, but I can't help myself. So let's check that out. So that's perfect for this map. Obviously, it does restrict us a little bit, but I'm not actually that fussed by that much. I don't want it too big. You could do a rectangle. Obviously, go with whichever way you want. That's that. Now, for the blueprint, obviously we need to take into account if something hits it, we need to make... a checkpoint's been hit. Maybe not but yeah. Actor begin overlap. I like that node, but I'm going to get rid of it to start with. First things first, what I'm going to do is select the cylinder. I'm going to go down to the bottom and on component begin overlap. And I was going to say, do you want to check that it's the player character? You probably do. So let's cast to player character. Is it it's vehicle in it? So there you go. Cast to sports car pawn. I'm so used to doing like third-person characters and first-person characters that completely threw me. So yeah, if it is that, that's fine. We want to set the visibility of we'll set actor hidden in game to true, because when you go over it you want it to disappear, so that's fine. But also you don't want somebody to like drive past your checkpoint and then reverse and get the checkpoints to count up, so we also want to turn the collision off. So dragging your cylinder, so we'll put it over here. You'll see why I'm going to put it here in just a minute. Let's move this. We want to set collision. A collision. Do I just want to turn collision on or off? Yeah. So no collision. Once it's been hit, you don't want collision to be active anymore. Oh my god, what am I doing? Get yourself together. So set the collision to none. Set it to hidden. And then we need to sort of like make a cry out that that it's been hit, because from the previous video, obviously in the game mode we're sort of recording laps. We should record where the checkpoints are stored in here as well. So we'll create an event dispatcher, which we can sort of, that's a message like checkpoint's been hit, checkpoint's been hit, checkpoint hit. And what we'll do is we'll drag that out and we will call that. So this is just going to send you a message out to anything that's interested that a checkpoint has been hit. And in our game mode we'll set up a listener, a binding, or maybe we'll set up a manager. We'll set something up to listen for those messages and sort of work with the data when that happens. So we'll increase the lap counter. You might want to do other stuff. You might want to do like a checkpoint time comparison. You know, your time between checkpoints. I know Gran Turismo likes to do that. That's pretty neat. So that's fine. But just in case something goes wrong, I just want to set in a little bit of a safety net here, and I want to set the collision. Let's just copy that. I want to set the collision when we start the game to query only. I like to do this if you're ever setting, like, I guess you could also say the same for actor hidden. You could set it up here to like make sure it isn't, just as a safety net to make sure it definitely does reset. But that's completely up to you. Yep. So let's chuck one into the game now. So that's here. So let's just chuck it there on that corner. Where did that go? I've noticed a bit of a bug here that sometimes when you drop stuff, I think the same thing happened with the start line in the first video. You tried dropping the sort of like the lines on top of these racetrack parts and they just don't apply. So let's just chuck that there. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm gonna put it there. Top view, focus on that, and I'm just gonna move it to there. Put it about halfway out. That's fine. So let's press play. Let's see what happens. So we drive round, start our race, go around this corner, hit this checkpoint, and it disappears. So that's about it for now. That's the only functionality we've added. Let's chuck this back in perspective mode. So we'll move over here for no reason at all, because we don't need that. So this checkpoint's calling out to say, yep, we've got that. So I don't think it's appropriate actually putting it in the game mode. I think we should just keep the game mode to data only. So I'm going to go back to the example map. I'm going to make something else, another blueprint, just purely to track the checkpoints or to manage them. And I'm going to appropriately name that checkpoint manager, BP underscore checkpoint manager. So with the manager, open that up. Now, obviously, this is not going to be a physical thing, but you are going to have to drop it in the world because we're going to make an array of checkpoints and we're going to add all the ones that we add to the game to it. You could probably do like a find all actors of class. I'm not a big fan of that because it sort of repeats itself and looks through your game all the time. It's just an unnecessary call when you can just drop it in the world. Right, so checkpoint manager. When we start, first thing we want to do, let's get a reference to our game mode. Game mode. Get a reference to game mode because we're going to be pushing data to this. So cast to GM time trial. So let's just make our reference to that. So promote. So as the time trial, that's fine. We're gonna have multiple checkpoints. So we could do with making a variable, add a variable, and we're gonna call this checkpoints. Checkpoints. We're gonna want to change this to type of BP checkpoint. Oh, checkpoint. And if you right click on your variable, you can see that it's gone from this little bean to an array. You want an array because we're going to be adding multiple checkpoints to this array, and they're going to be the checkpoints that it's going to be looking for you to drive into. So grab our checkpoints, get checkpoints. I'm going to hit compile, and you can see that this array element here pops up. Now what's going to happen is if I just press save, if I just chuck my manager into the world, absolutely fine. What it's going to allow us to do now, actually, sorry, your checkpoints are actually going to need to be exposed. So select your checkpoints and instance editable and expose on spawn, compile, go back to your example map, and if you see now, with your checkpoint manager selected, here at the top under default you've got checkpoints, so you can now add them, and you can use this this sort of dropper to pick the actor from the scene, and you can see here that I've got my checkpoint. Click on that and it's added my first checkpoint. So what I'll do is quickly, I'm just going to change my perspective back to top, and holding the Alt key on the keyboard, you can duplicate things whilst you move them. So holding Alt, I'm going to go to move it, and you can see it's made a duplicate. I'm just going to chuck a couple of these around. Holding Alt again, I'll put another one there. Holding Alt again, I'll put another one there. Now I'm putting these here, so then people, you could cut that corner and cut that corner and then cut that corner, but you know, you don't want to put too many of them around because it's kind of shit, I guess. It's not that good. And I'll put the final one there, and then you're going back to the start line. So we've got a couple there now. Let's go back to perspective mode, and what I'm going to do is find my manager, which is there. Obviously it's a tiny little thing, it's a little gizmo. Having that's probably not ideal, but you could chuck it in a folder of managers. Yeah, we're going to do that actually. Move to create new folder and managers. Why not? Yeah, so all our managers will be in there. Do we have any other ones? No, not yet. Go to the details. I'm going to add a couple more, and I'm actually just going to select these from the list. It's miles easier. So number 3, number 4, number 5, and one more, number 6. So in total we've got 6 checkpoints. They're all added to the manager. So we can go back to the manager now. So we know that when we run this script, this checkpoint is going to spit out 6. Now that's a decent bit of information, because what we can do is we can say get the length of this array, which is going to be 6, promote this to a variable, and we know that this is going to be our checkpoints required, I guess. Checkpoints required. So this is the number of checkpoints that we need to hit. So we'll set that as soon as we know it. Let's just tuck all this stuff up here like that. Then we need to go through all of these checkpoints and set up a listener or a binding is what it's called. So for every checkpoint that there is in the game, go through each of them and set up a binding, listening for when we hit it. And that comes from this event dispatcher. This dispatcher sends out a message, and what we need to do is for each checkpoint we need to set up a binding. So if we hear an event or a message saying I've been hit, we need to do something about it. So that's quite simple. So from your checkpoints, you want to do a for loop for each. Do we need a break? We don't need a break. So a for each loop. Pop that in. Just going to add that there like that. So this is going to run, and for each item in the array, for each checkpoint that we've got, we need to do something specific for each one of them. So every time we go through a checkpoint, so checkpoint number 0, the first one, do this, then number 2, do this, then number 3, do this, then number 4, do this. If you've never used them before, we actually need to get the array element first and do a bind on event. I can see it says there, so bind event to checkpoint hit. So what this is saying is every time I get a response from any of these checkpoints saying that they've been hit, do this event. I keep dragging stuff around instead of it's starting to bug me. Yeah, so every time we get I've been hit, do this event. So we can set up a custom event for this, and checkpoint here, yeah, that'll do. So every time something hits it, let's just for now just do a print string and just make sure that works. Let's go checkpoint hit. This is probably a good point to break away and add the checkpoints text to our heads up display, because we're going to start displaying text, or we're going to have some information to sort of feedback. So under UMG, open up your main HUD. Now previously we put laps up at the top here, but I actually thinking now we're doing checkpoints, that checkpoints would probably be more appropriate being there. So I'm going to grab both of these and I'm just going to slide them down over here. On the heads up display, what we're going to do is we're going to grab I'm going to grab these lap text actually, and I'm going to duplicate them. But you can't, can you? Let's pull them over here. So instead of laps, we're going to have the word checkpoints. Checkpoints. We're going to get the lap text as well. Drag that over. Have that centered. Have that set to 0, and have that set to minus 250. Something like that, or minus 275. That might be a bit too close, but that'll do. I actually do want to center that one. That's probably a little bit too close, so minus 270, something like that. Compile that. I know it's laps at the moment, which means it's going to be, oh, it's not, is it? It's not bound. Let's just pretend 0 out of 6, something like that. Compile, player. Apart from not being centered properly, that looks fine. Put that on like that. So that looks fine. 0.6. Don't want to spend too much time on that. Now, obviously, we're going to need to format the text to look like this as well. So that's another thing we need to do. Let's just quickly set up a macro, and let's just put checkpoints to text. And we're going to need 2 inputs. They're both going to be integers. That's going to be checkpoints required, and then checkpoints hit. Yep. And then as an output, we're going to want a text, which is going to be what we're going to display on the screen. Checkpoints as text. compile. So that's that. So the output here is going to be an no, come on, an append string, and then that's going to be a to text. So that's the output. We're going to want to add a pin, so we're going to want the checkpoints hit, and then the checkpoints required, and then in the middle we're going to want a space, a forward slash, and a space. And to be honest, that's it. It doesn't take much, but we're probably going to reuse this, so setting up a macro is probably a good idea, because now what you can do is you can just chuck this onto the screen like that, and you just need to plug in the right data. So for this we're going to need the checkpoints required to plug in there, which is going to come, this is our array that from our checkpoints that we've got. And then what we want to do is on our GM time trial, let's create a variable checkpoints, or I shouldn't have pressed enter there, but let's put checkpoint text, change the type to text, and I'm not sure where I'm going to put it just yet, but back in our manager, let's promote this to a variable and set it there. So basically, before everything runs, it's going to set the checkpoint text. Do we want to set that straight onto the time trial actually instead? Yeah, we might want to do that instead actually. Get the time trial. Do I need that? No, let's get rid of that. So I'm going to delete the variable as text, and instead I'm going to set checkpoint as text straight away onto the time trial. I think there's no point doubling up a variable for no benefit at all. I can just reference the time trial straight away then. So straight away the screen is going to display how many checkpoints there are to hit. Hit compile, go to our HUD, set a binding on this text, so where it says text, set a binding, hit time trial and go to checkpoint text, hit compile, press play, and it says 6 straight away, which is good. And then this isn't going to update because we've not set that up yet, but we can do now. So in our checkpoint manager, once it's been hit, we need to take the, so let's make a variable checkpoint count. Obviously this needs to be an integer. It doesn't want to be an array either, so let's change that. Let's get that for now. And every time we hit one, we want to add to this. So if you type ++, you'll get increment int. Now this is a function, so what it does is it takes this figure, adds 1 to it, and then sets it, just as the tooltip says there. So we're going to increase that value straight away. But then also what we want to do is we want to grab our macro, and we want to change this. So let's grab our checkpoints required, plug that in there. I guess we could just put that there like that. But then we need to update the game mode again. So I tell you what, we could just steal that and that, copy that, pop that in there like that. So we've hit the checkpoint, we've increased the count, and then we've set the text. So that should update. It should update. Let's just have a quick look. So it does. That's brilliant. When all the checkpoints have been hit, because at the moment what we're doing is when we drive over them, they turn invisible or they're hidden. When we've hit all of them, we want to reset that. So once we go over the finish line, or once the count equals required, then we'll do it. Yeah, let's do that. So if the count becomes greater than or equal to the required, do a branch. So if at any point that the count becomes greater than or equal to the required is true, then we're going to want to set all of them to visible. Set all of them to visible. So from that, okay, so just pause for a second there, and I just thought, actually, if we reset the checkpoints when we go over the last one, essentially all of the checkpoints will reappear on the racetrack before you've even finished a lap, which really you want to pass the start line again and finish the lap, and then they reset. So to do that, it's going to be a bit interesting, because this event only happens when we cross a checkpoint. So effectively this code, this blueprint's not going to run again to check whether we finished the race. So I think what might be a better way of doing this last bit is if we just start a timer to run every second to see if we've crossed the start line to reset them. It might not be the most. It might not be the best way to do it, but it works in my mind. So we'll do an event timer. So set timer by event. We want it to loop. I'm going to say a second for now. What we'll do is we'll do a practice run and just see if that looks delayed. I'm hoping it doesn't. So we'll set that timer. I don't know when we're going to need to stop it actually, but from the event we're going to do a custom event. Let's have a look. A custom event, and we'll do reset checkpoints. Reset checkpoints. So only when the checkpoints are all hit, this time is going to start. Then we want to check to see if the lap has been completed. So as GM time trial, do we have a lap? We've got an update laps. So laps completed, laps required. Once the laps completed are greater than or equal to required, the race is finished. If they're not, that means you've completed a lap. So let's create a boolean for lap complete. Lap completed. Let's put a question mark on there. So it's like, is it true or false? Lap completed. Set to true. So update laps. If you've not finished the race, you've finished the lap at least. Now we're going to have to unset that. So I'm just going to chuck a comment around that to unset. Unset that at some point. I don't know where I'm going to put that, but I don't want to worry about it just now. So when this becomes true, so go back to our manager, lap completed. So get lap completed. If that's true, if the lap's completed is true, I tell you what, that's a good place. So lap, oh my god, lap completed, set. I've got a microphone in front of the keyboard, so it is a bit harder for me to type. So lap completed, set to false. So I've already answered the question, sorry, where I'm going to put that. So just before I forget, I'm just going to get rid of that. That's fine. So back here. So reset the checkpoints. Has the lap been completed? Yes. Undo that. Then for each of the checkpoints, get each checkpoint. For each of those, we want to do this. Copy that, go back to the checkpoint manager, paste. So we're going to set the collision for each of these. So that's for the cylinder, that's right. And for the actor, untick that. I'll tell you what I could do actually, is if I reverse these, that won't look as terrible. It doesn't really matter which order I do them in, does it? I can put that there then. So instead we're going to set that to query only. Query only, yep, probably. We need to reset the counter as well, don't we? So set the counter. So set. Do we want to set it to 0 straight away? Yeah, we will. So we'll set that, and then we need to update the text as well. So the required is going to be, it's not going to change. The checkpoints are going to be like that either way. Plug that in, and then as GM time trial, get that. We want to set checkpoint text. Plug that into there, and plug that into there like that. Okay, so let me just do a quick rundown in my head to make sure we've got this right. Event begin play, we're going to set a reference to our time trial. We're going to get our checkpoints and check the length of it, and that becomes how many checkpoints we need to hit. For each of the checkpoints, we're going to set up a binding to listen for hits. So if somebody drives into one, we do the following blueprint. But just before we do that, we update our screen with how many checkpoints there are to hit. Once we hit a checkpoint, we're going to add one to the count. We're going to put the count versus required on the screen as text. And we're going to start a timer when we hit one. Or we're going to start a timer when the count is equal to or greater than what is required, which means we've hit all the checkpoints. We'll start a timer which is going to check every second to see if the lap has been completed. Once it has, we're going to reset all of the... Okay, so that should work. Should work. Let's try it out. So we'll drive around. And you get to see now firsthand how bad my driving is. So we're going to drive around. So we've got 1 of 6. We've got 2 of 6. I'm glad that it only takes 30 seconds to do a lap, so then it's not as much pain for you. 4 of 6. Don't want to miss one. 5 of 6. 6 of 6. So just before I go over the finish line, I can't see any of the others. And then when I drive over the line, I should see one appear over there. Yep, so as I cross the line, my text has just reset, and you can see that the checkpoints have now reset again, and we can repeat the process. So that's pretty much it. I think that's covered the basis of what I wanted to get done for this video. Not too sure on the video length, so if it's plus 30 minutes, which it probably is, I do apologise. Thank you for watching. If you want me to continue with this series, please let me know. There was a massive gap between my first one and my second one. This is the third one. So if you want me to carry on, please pop some comments down below. I'm going to continue anyway, but I'm probably going to put next week's video as something different. But if I get a lot of push, then I'll just crack on. I'm committed to get this project finished up until the point which I'd got it to, which is checkpoints sort of dictating whether you can finish a lap or not. If you want to see that, obviously subscribe. Let me know in the comments, and just for a bit of helpfulness, consider giving me a like. If you need any help with anything, whether it's this project, any of the other videos, or anything Unreal at all, pop a comment down below, or alternatively you can join the Discord group. I'm always active in there. I'll tend to respond at least within the day that you've messaged me. There's tons of resources already there anyway from previous discussions. So if you need any support or anything like that, give us a message on that. I'll be sure to help you on there. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another one. Thank you.